Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Steel City Sports Report for some breaking news. Ladies and gentlemen, Mason Rudolph is back in the black and gold. Let me get my lights to the right color there. Mason Rudolph, the return of the king. What's the line that Thanos always used to say? You couldn't live with the weight of your own failure. And where did that bring you? Right back to me. Mason Rudolph is back in the Steel City. It is an 2-year deal, worth $8 million with $4.5 million to return to the Steelers. That is per NFL insider Mike Garafolo. Rudolph mulled multiple options, including a return to the Tennessee Titans, who he signed with last offseason, but was motivated to come back to Pittsburgh, a city and a team that loves him. He left on a high note, of course, getting the Steelers to the playoffs. They ultimately lost against the Buffalo Bills, but we always remember him coming in and playing some of the best quarterback that us Steelers fans haven't seen since Big Ben retired. And now Rudolph, after spending a year down in Tennessee, returns to the Steel City. And we should not be surprised by this whatsoever. It was only a couple of days ago that Dan Kovacic of DK Pittsburgh Sports posted that the Steelers did reach back out to Mason Rudolph about a possible return. And we, at the time, needed to take that very seriously because Dan Kovacic, he has a semi-daily show with former Steelers offensive guard Ramon Foster, and of course, Ramon Foster working with the Tennessee Titans. I believe he does radio for them down there. So not only did Ramon used to block for Mason when he was still playing, but he also worked with the Titans when Rudolph was down there. So no shock there that DK was in the know about Mason Rudolph's situation. Rudolph is back in the black and gold. Let me pop that up here real quick just to get it up on the screen. Mason Rudolph back, a 2-year, $8 million deal with 4.5. Is that a signing bonus? Or is that guaranteed money? I got to find that out. Mason Rudolph, 2 years deal. Yeah, 4.5 million. I'm not sure if that is guaranteed money on the contract or if that's a signing bonus. We are waiting to get some clarity on that. But yes, Mason Rudolph back in the black and gold, returning to Pittsburgh. It's going to be easy for him to get his number 2 back with Justin Fields signing elsewhere. Fields kept it nice and warm for him this past offseason. Or this past season, I should say. And now we just need to wait and see if that is a backup quarterback contract. And honestly, regardless of whether Mason is a starter or a backup, it's great to have him back and on that contract. I think if Mason is reading the tea leaves around the NFL, well, first off, I think he can sign here, and he probably thinks he has a decent chance of being the starter, with the Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers situations being in flux right now. You don't know where either of those two men are going to end up. So Rudolph coming back to Pittsburgh may have an opportunity to be the starting quarterback when it's all said and done. And also, if he's back here and he can be the Steelers' backup quarterback long-term, that is probably one of the best backup options that the Steelers have had in years. Looking more here into this, a reunion. Rudolph, of course, the Steelers' second-round draft pick or third-round draft pick, I forget which round that was, in 2018. Spent his first 6 seasons with the Steelers before spending 1 year down in Tennessee this past season. Also started some games down there for them too, because they don't really have a quarterback either, dealing with Will Levis and whatnot. Let me pop up Mason Rudolph's profile here. And there we go. Right there it is. Mason Rudolph, 29 years old, going to be 30 when the season starts. Of course, another Oklahoma State Cowboy back in the fold. Gets to reunite with his Oklahoma State brethren, Jaylen Warren. And last year with the Titans, played in 8 games, started 5 of them, went 1-4, but hey, it's the Titans. They're picking first overall for a reason. Had a 64 completion percentage. I'd like to compare that here in a minute to Justin Fields and Russell Wilson. Passed for 1,500 yards, had 9 touchdowns, also had 9 picks. But again, you're playing the Titans. The Titans, after they traded DeAndre Hopkins, I believe Calvin Ridley, who was their top receiver down there, also was hurt for part of the year. Rudolph still slinging it. I think, if you can get Rudolph back here, he's going to be throwing to much better weapons than when he was here the first go around and when he was starting at the end of last year, 2 years ago. Instead of throwing to, just George Pickens now, he's got another tall, muscular option in DK Metcalf. And we all know that Mason Rudolph has a phenomenal deep ball, just like Russell Wilson. Going into the comments, Don16 in here, is Rodgers still in play? I like Rudolph. I mean, it depends on when Rodgers decides to, stop strolling along the beach with earbuds in and, a towel wrapped around him. I mean, we all know Rodgers. He's a strange guy, and regardless of whether he, admits it or not, Aaron Rodgers loves the attention on him. He's going to drag this out as long as possible, and this is probably a result of Rodgers taking his good old time to make a decision. Steelers, they needed to add a quarterback to this room. Heading into today, they only had one quarterback on roster. That was Skylar Thompson, who was signed to a futures contract at the end of the season, former Miami Dolphin. And you needed something. You needed a guy who at least has NFL experience and who has started. Once more of you popping into the chat here. Kelly Kaiser, good. I like Mason and a pick for quarterback with the 20th pick. No way do I want Rodgers or Wilson. Why do the Steelers love their vets in their mid-30s or higher? Well, Rudolph, low 30s guy. He's going to be a solid backup. He can win you a couple of games. Couldn't be a better backup option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Or even if he starts, we know he's got the ability to win a couple of games with him. But I don't think he's necessarily going to be a guy that is going to carry you into the playoffs. At most, if, Rodgers or Wilson goes elsewhere, maybe Rudolph plays the entire year or most of the year, and you are in the top 10 for a draft pick next year. Kelly, I do want to agree strongly with your let's pick a quarterback with the 21st overall pick. After, waiting the past 48 hours for Rodgers to make a decision, I mean, I'd still take Rodgers. I think he's still got a good bit left in the tank, and if he doesn't retire, of course. And I think that he will do well in showing George Pickens and DK Metcalf equal love, keep them both happy, get them lots of targets, lots of receptions, and whatnot. But 21st pick, I am fully sold and invested on the idea of taking Jackson Dart from Mississippi. Absolutely love his tape. He just looks like a NFL quarterback, carries himself very well. And I think he's a guy that if you take the Chicago Bears route right now of building up the weapons around him, he's going to make the most of that opportunity. And he's got DK, George Pickens, Pat Freiermuth, been there, done that. You got Jaylen Warren and Kenneth Gainwell currently as your two backs in the backfield. And there's probably going to be a running back drafted there as well. I think Jackson Dart, you put him in this offense, he's going to do very well. He's mobile and he's got the arm and the reading of the field to do all of that. Kelly, again, Rodgers is bad for the locker room team, bad vibes. I mean, yeah, he's going to, really capture the attention of the media, that's for sure. And yeah, he's going to it's going to be a fun locker room to be in with DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and Aaron Rodgers. But, I mean, when has there not been drama in the Steelers locker room? I mean, he has a Netflix series called Enigma or whatever, so I haven't gotten around to watching that yet. But, I mean, pretty much if you watch the trailer of that, you can find out all you need to know about Aaron Rodgers. Old Dusty Trail here. Mason effing Rudolph. All things are in balance again. Hell yeah. Mason Rudolph, everybody remembers him coming in at the end of the 2023 season. And everybody remembers him coming in, slinging the ball all over the field. We remember him, his first ever pass attempt against the Cincinnati Bengals in that game, hitting George Pickens up the middle of the field. GP with breakaway speed scores a touchdown, and Mason lit it up that game. Had a great game against the Seattle Seahawks as well. And yeah, I mean, just left the city on good terms. Of course, we all remember singing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer when it was around Christmas time and Mason won. So couldn't be happier with this addition. A guy who knows the locker room, is well liked by everybody in there, and he's going to be, if not the starter, depending on who all the Steelers sign or lack thereof, then yeah, it's just an overall perfect quarterback signing for the Steelers. He's going to be here starting, or he can be the perfect backup for years to come. Dan 16 again, trade for Kenny, LOL. I would, as funny as that would be, it is quite actually impossible. I believe there is a rule or law in the NFL that prohibits and doesn't allow teams to reacquire a player less than 2 years after they traded them away, unless it is a free agent signing. Kenny is not a free agent signing. He is still on his rookie contract. So the Browns would have to cut Kenny, and then I believe he could come back to the Steelers, but there's just no way that the Steelers could trade for him right now. It would be absolutely hilarious, though, now that he's with Cleveland, if Cleveland does sign Russell Wilson, because Kenny, come hell or high water, you are destined to sit behind Russell Wilson. You didn't want to do it here in Pittsburgh. Well, guess what? You're going to do it on a much worse team, a much worse franchise in Cleveland, and you're just going to hate your life there. Jaquan right here, yay. Should never have gotten rid of him. I mean, absolutely. And you know what? This is something that needed to happen. Him going to Tennessee last year. I think it's that Mike Tomlin waited so long to put Mason in 2 years ago when it was clear and obvious that he was the best quarterback on the roster. He waited too long to do that. Mason was tired and of, just sitting around and not earning the trust of the coach, and he wanted to try something new. He went down to Tennessee, started a couple of games. Some things went right, some things went wrong, and now both Tomlin and Rudolph, both sides, I think they see that, hey, we're good here for each other. It's like, when you're dating someone and you say, oh, let's take a break and explore other options, and then you find out that there isn't anything better than what we have going on here. So now Mason comes back to a place where he's well liked. He knows the coach. He's going to, I think it's going to be pretty easy for him to learn the Arthur Smith system, and that he could play very well in that, could, be a Ryan Tannehill type that Arthur Smith had down in Tennessee. But I think it's two sides, seeing that they're destined to be each other, and now they are back together and things are perfect. Old Dusty here again. Also remember the back-to-back concussions, getting his head ripped off in Baltimore and then in Cleveland. Never complained, never asked out like Kenny, and he was sat down. Absolutely. I mean, this is a guy who isn't going to cause a stir up, and I think he's just an overall good teammate. Pretty much the only knock that I ever had against Mason during his time in Pittsburgh was, and this is just a rumor or something that I heard a while back was Big Ben's last game at Heinz Field when, Najee Harris scored that touchdown, and then it looked like the Steelers weren't going to get the ball back, but they got an interception. I think Mason was going out to kneel it down, and then Ben was like, hold up. But, I mean, hey, Mason probably just saw Ben was in an emotional state, and, maybe Ben wasn't moving out to go onto the field right away. So, a quarterback had to be out there. But, yeah, I mean, Mason, I do not Mason, the concussions you saw going back when Juju Smith-Schuster was on the team, you knew that the team cared about Mason. When Mason got knocked out against the Baltimore Ravens and Juju was obviously emotional. Teammates love him. When Myles Garrett ripped his helmet off and then hit him in the head with it, you saw David DeCastro, Marquise Pouncey, his offensive lineman, come into his aid. Pounce Garrett started it, but Pounce finished it. I've never seen Pouncey like that before. Like, he legit was about ready to, go to the depths of hell fighting Myles Garrett in that scrum. And going back to the whole thing where, like, a couple days after the fact, Myles Garrett was, calling Rudolph a racist and whatnot, Mike Tomlin stood up for him. So, the coach has his back as well. Rodgers had everything, JC here. Rodgers had everything he wanted with the Jets, and he looks like trash. Now we are begging him to come here. I wish we weren't on our knees begging. Let's roll with Rudolph and Winston or Willis. Yes to Rudolph, no to Jameis Winston. Winston would be very entertaining. Not going to lie to that. But Winston might make, Mike Tomlin need to be stretchered off the field with how he is mentally wise. He's got the most effort somebody's down there, whether it's my receiver or a defender. Like, Winston would drive Mike Tomlin insane with his risks in turnovers, and I don't see that fit as well. And also Malik Willis, glad he had some success up in Green Bay, I believe is where he last was. But, if the Steelers really thought highly of him, if they were willing to trade a draft pick now, if they really thought that highly of him, they would have taken him in the first round over Kenny Pickett a few years ago. Chad Schrader in here. I'm hoping our Steelers sign a quarterback soon. Well, there you have it right there. Mason Rudolph, he's going to be your starter as of right now. But, at this point, Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, they aren't going to be a perfect fit either way. I say you stick with Rudolph and then you take Jackson Dart at 21. I love Jackson Dart. I'm sold on him as my top option right now. And another thing, going back to the what JC said here, Rodgers had everything he wanted with the Jets, and he looked like trash. I mean, yes, Rodgers and the Jets were bad. That was also a bad organization. They fired their coach, they fired their general manager and whatnot. But going back to Rodgers had everything. If Rodgers comes to the Steelers, I don't want him doing what he did with the Jets, where he then said, hey, I'm going to be the captain of the ship now. I'm calling the shots. I want you, Omar Khan, to trade for Alan Lazard right now. I want you. You just got DK Metcalf. Guess what? Send Metcalf to the Rams. Give me Devontae Adams. I want this. I want that. We cannot afford that right now. Omar Khan is trying to build this team up to it, especially in the trenches. Omar Khan and Andy Weidel, they're trying to build this team up to contend with teams like the Eagles and, be like a carbon copy of them. We don't need Aaron Rodgers in here. As much as I think he would do well throwing to Metcalf and Pickens, we don't need him coming in and demanding, certain players be put on this team. Well, thank God Mason is back. Absolutely happy that Mason is here. Again, just perfect teammate, perfect backup quarterback, fringe starter if you need him to come in for a handful of games. And that's another reason why I, wouldn't be shocked if Rodgers, say, goes to the Giants or the Vikings, make him an offer because we know he wants to go to Minnesota bad. He wants to complete his Brett Favre arc storyline, whatever the hell that, Green Bay Packer quarterbacks do. So let's just say hypothetically that Rodgers goes to Minnesota or New York, or that Russell Wilson signs with the Cleveland Browns, or I think it's more likely Russ is going to go to the Giants. They met with him last year before he signed with the Steelers. Steelers then are left to options like Gardner Minshew, which, hey, Gardner Minshew, I would have loved for him to have gotten signed too. I put him in the same group as Mason Rudolph, a backup good teammate who is going to be a fringe starter with you. I would have loved Gardner Minshew had they not re-signed Mason Rudolph here. But, right now, if you have Mason, you let him start the season because he knows the team. You take Jackson Dart at 21, and I think Dart right now is more of an NFL-ready quarterback compared to when we took Kenny Pickett. I think Dart can come in, sit behind Mason. Mason starts the year. I don't know. Is the Steelers? I forget if the Steelers. No, they do not have their schedule released yet. But whenever the Steelers bye week is, if it's somewhat early in the season, you have Rudolph start off the year, play that first half of games. He'll at least have you at 500. I think Rudolph will, and then you tell Dart, we got a set plan here. You sit behind Mason, learn, we'll then put you in. You cannot, if you draft Jackson Dart, throw him into the fire unexpectedly like the Steelers did Kenny. You cannot do that to him. But if you bring in Dart, say, hey, Mason's our guy right now, sit and learn, but be ready because you could be going in after the bye week. Let's go to more comments here, trying to catch up. Mark here, I love this movie, played well when given a chance, absolutely. And I would much rather, now that he's here, I'm going to change my tone a little bit. I would much rather have Mason, be a fringe starter and draft a quarterback than bring in Rodgers or Wilson. And then, if you sit either one of those two, that they are going to make a whole drama, spectacular out of that. Chat again here. I don't want Rodgers on this team because the drama, and we already have 2 wide receiver drama queens. If Rodgers came in, the new Kardashians show. And yeah, I mean, no lies detected there. And I do want to say this is that also shout out Chad to the profile pic there. I believe that's WWE. Is that Naomi and whatnot? Okay, cool. WWE guy myself. But yeah, going to the I don't want Rodgers drama, and you already got drama queens at wide receiver. I think that if you bring in Mason, I said yesterday, if you would please go check out my live stream yesterday, I said if you bring in Rodgers, he is your best bet at spreading targets between GP and DK to where he keeps both of them happy. I think Mason Rudolph can do that same exact thing, if not better, but without the drama that Rodgers brings. That is a huge, huge plus for Mason Rudolph. He has no baggage whatsoever, little to no baggage whatsoever. He waited his turn. He got his opportunity, took the most of it. We remember that Cincinnati game. I mean, I couldn't remember, where many other players on offense got targeted except for George Pickens in that game, and even the Seahawks game after that. Your quarterback plan of Mason and Dart is brilliant and better than the better long-term solution. It also keeps the Steelers culture intact. Rodgers on McAfee throwing people under the bus after losing is a nightmare. Absolutely. And prime example of that was Mike Williams. Mike Williams came to Pittsburgh pretty much solely because Rodgers wanted him gone. I believe Rodgers back then said, oh, Mike was supposed to, keep running up the field and stay on the line, but instead he veered off and it resulted in an interception. No, first off, and this is something Mason Rudolph is going to do. When you're a quarterback, even if it is or isn't your fault, you got to take responsibility first and foremost, saying, that was my bad. I either shouldn't have thrown it at that time, or I should have put it in a spot where Mike was going to catch it, or it was going to be incomplete. And Mason Rudolph, he's a guy who takes accountability like that. That's another plus that you love him for. And Rodgers, I hate saying this about him, but we saw a little bit of that from Big Ben during his time when he was a Steeler, not necessarily taking the blame of a play and throwing a couple of his wide receivers under the bus. And Rodgers is, cut from that same cloth, a gunslinger quarterback who's going to, stay in the pocket and throw the ball a lot. And Mason does all that same things, but he's going to take accountability. He's going to get GP and DK the ball, keep both of them as happy as they possibly can be. Mark, again, is Aaron Rodgers still in play? I mean, who knows? Who knows? You mean you heard the Steelers, you heard the Giants, Vikings are apparently still in play because even though they think highly of JJ McCarthy up there in Minneapolis, Rodgers would love to go there. And I mean, I don't blame him. If Minnesota is still looking to add a quarterback, it's by far the best option there. Of course, Kevin O'Connell's offense, a very friendly, quarterback-friendly offense up there. I mean, they took Sam Darnold and made him into one of the best quarterbacks, in the NFL last year. And it showed. He got paid 3 years, $100 million. Is Rodgers in play? Who knows? I saw something that Tone Diggs from the Pat McAfee show posted. Oh, we know Aaron Rodgers is a strange guy. He likes ayahuasca and moon energy and whatnot. It's a full moon tomorrow night on Friday. Rodgers is going to make his decision then. Like, strange guy, Aaron Rodgers. I mean, you hope for an answer soon. I don't really care if it's the Steelers or another team at this point. Just we've gotten to the point where it's like the Brandon Ayuk situation last offseason for the Steelers, where you were just waiting and waiting for an answer. And it's gotten to the point where I don't care where you go, where you sign, how much money you signed for. Just please make a decision so we can all move on with our lives and stop thinking about this all the time. If you want a very Aaron Rodgers thing, I mean, Pat McAfee show begins here in 6 minutes on ESPN. I mean, Rodgers will probably go on and announce his, decision there or something like that. Who the hell knows? I love Mason and Dart idea. Works for me. I do it. I don't care if it's a weak quarterback draft class, because right now, in my mind, looking at the quarterbacks in this year draft, you got Cam Ward and Shadur Sanders as your tier one. Very small step down. Then you got Jackson Dart, and then big step down, you got everyone else, your Jalen Milrose, Quinn Ewers, Will Howards, all that, Tyler Shucks, all that. I don't want the Steelers now to, if the Steelers only have Mason as their only quarterback other than Skylar Thompson, if the Steelers only have Mason Rudolph heading into the draft here in about a month, you cannot afford to not take a quarterback at 21. I would say if the Steelers would have signed Rodgers instead, then you take a, fourth or fifth round flyer on a starter, depending on how far Jalen Milroe falls back, Quinn Ewers, Tyler Shucks. Then you take a guy who's definitely going to be a backup, but maybe could, you can unlock something should he, have that talent in him. But now you have Mason Rudolph, who's fringe starter backup. Absolutely take Jackson Dart, start Mason Rudolph, and then have Dart come in next year or the year after that. Armand in here. I agree, re-sign Mason in your comments on Minshew. Both nice guys in 1A quarterbacks. I mean, yeah, Minshew is exactly in the same boat as Mason Rudolph, in my opinion, a guy who's going to, start, win you a couple games, keep you around 500. That's all you ask for until, your other quarterback gets back. And the only thing that worries me now, and I've said this multiple times, Art Rooney II made this comment in multiple interviews so far this offseason. He said that he wants the Steelers wide receiver room, or not the wide receiver room, the Steelers quarterback room to be one of the same. He said that he wants either the quarterbacks to if you get like say the Steelers would have re-signed Justin Fields, then you need all of your you want all of your quarterbacks behind them to be, very mobile quarterbacks like Fields is. If you were to sign a pocket quarterback a la Mason Rudolph here, then you want all of your quarterbacks to be pocket quarterbacks. Basically, Rooney wants his quarterbacks to be one of the same, have pretty much the same style of play, same traits, to where the playbook isn't changing for each guy. And that's where I think Rodgers is still in play, is that Rudolph, we know he's a pocket passer, and Rodgers at this stage in his career is pretty much limited to being a pocket passer. I still think Jackson Dart can be in play there, because I see Dart as a guy who's somewhere in between. We know he's got the legs, but he can also throw from the pocket. He's got good pocket presence from the tape that I've watched. So right now I am all aboard the idea of Mason Rudolph and Jackson Dart as the top two quarterbacks heading into next year. Have Rudolph start. We know he can play AFC North ball and win you a couple of games, be an efficient passer, get the ball to his main targets, not this whole where Arthur Smith puts out on a 3rd and 5 freaking Calvin Austin and Van Jefferson and your third string tight end like Michael Pruitt. I think Mason's going to know who his guys are and get the ball to them effectively. Looking at more comments here. Think we should draft a future and still trade for a solid vet. I don't think you trade for a quarterback now, honestly, unless the San Francisco 49ers lose their minds, say we're going full rebuild. We got the 9th overall pick, I believe is what San Fran has. Yeah, 9th overall. We want to trade up into the top 5 and take Shadur Sanders. And unless the 49ers lose their mind, say we're going full rebuild and are willing to trade Brock Purdy, that's the only quarterback that I'm really trading for at this point, because all the other ones are staying put. But yeah, solid vet Mason Rudolph. You got the first part of that down. Now you have to draft a future, and I think you can do that with Jackson Dart. But Steelers also have in the back of their mind possibly just letting Mason run this whole year and see if he tanks you out into a top draft pick when the draft is in your city in 2026. Draft next year in Pittsburgh. I think, I would love the Steelers to take Dart, but I'm not sure if Dart is on the Steelers' radar. If I had to guess what Omar Khan is thinking right now, seeing how the quarterback situation has played out, we may just start Mason Rudolph all year and then have a top pick in next year's draft in 2026 and take a franchise quarterback then, whether it be Drew Aller or Arch Manning, whatever that is there. Fred Weber in here. Before I go any further with questions, 20 of you in here, I see we've been bouncing up, in between the high teens to above 20, mid-20s. If you would, please subscribe to the channel. Also, feel free to keep commenting, like, and share the stream as well. Fred Weber here, just a guest. Steelers are not going to sign a starter after the draft this year, going to trade up, picking up Malik Willis 2026, 2nd and 3rd round picks. So you're saying there that after the draft this year, they're going to trade for Malik Willis. I don't see Malik Willis becoming a Steeler unless, he's willing to be a third guy behind Mason Rudolph and whoever else the Steelers have. I could see Malik Willis if the Steelers do start Mason Rudolph the entire year. I can see, Willis then come to Pittsburgh and be a backup then. But here's the thing. Where's Malik Willis at? Is he still in Green Bay? If he's still in Green Bay right now, Malik Willis, I don't see, any motivation for the Packers to trade Willis, because you got you have Jordan Love up there who dealt with injuries last year, and Willis went in and played pretty well for them in the pinch. So I don't see any reason for them to trade Willis. If you got a solid backup option who plays well for you, I don't see why they would do that whatsoever. Would you want Cousins over Rodgers? I really believe culture matters, and the Rodgers circus is a locker room mess. Last year, Rodgers let it draw out about him being VP for Kennedy. Yeah, I do remember that now. What was it down to? Kennedy was looking at Rodgers and the Body Ventura too. I mean, talk about tying two of my favorite things, football and wrestling there. But yeah, that was a crazy time. Honestly, if the Steelers thought they could fix Cousins, I mean, I'm not really excited about paying Cousins $37 million. The only reason why I would say to bring in Cousins is if they would treat it like how the Falcons are treated their quarterback situation last year. If you were to I would have brought in Cousins had the Steelers not signed Rudolph. Had Cousins be the starter, he's making $37 million 4 years, and drafted a quarterback high, whether that would have been this year or next year. But I don't see Cousins being an option now. He got benched for a reason, and also, Falcons, they have Penix down there on a rookie contract, so they have little to no reason to cut Cousins. He has a good relationship with Penix down there. And also, Cousins went to Atlanta for a reason. He and his wife have family down there in Atlanta, so he's not going to, after a year, tell his family, hey, we came here for you guys, and, we want to build our family here around other family. And I don't see him, moving to Pittsburgh and, moving away from his family again. Fred Weber, Locke. I mean, I put Locke in the conversation as Rudolph, a fringe starter who's going to be a backup for his whole career. I mean, I put Mason Rudolph, Gardner Minshew, Drew Locke, Malik Willis. Those guys are all cut from the same cloth, and I think you need a guy who's going to be like a legit starter to go along with Mason Rudolph for next season. I don't see the Steelers made their decision. It's going to be Rudolph. They could have had any one of those 4 guys. They chose Rudolph, and now they just need a starter to go along with it. Steelers fan here. Rudolph isn't starting. You never know. I said I'd draft Jackson Dart in a heartbeat and have Rudolph start the year and have Dart come in midway through. Mason Rudolph left here on good terms, and he performed well. He made really one bad throw in the playoff game against Buffalo that resulted in an interception. I cannot rule out whatsoever that Mason Rudolph is at least a, starter with the plan of a young quarterback coming in midway through the season. I cannot rule out Rudolph not being a starting quarterback. Top gun here. I love Mason. Glad he is back. Doesn't matter who we have at quarterback. It's obviously Mike Tomlin calls the offense. It's the reason why it has looked the same for over 6 years now in 3 different offensive coordinators. I definitely think Tomlin, I agree with that part on Tomlin. I definitely think that he, as a defensive coach, please stick to the defense, because he definitely, I think, and I don't think it's partially looking at how the Steelers offense went last year. If I had to put the blame on why the offense was bad, you can divide it up between the players, Arthur Smith and Mike Tomlin. I think you put Tomlin probably at the top of that list, and then the players, and then Arthur Smith, because I definitely think Tomlin was in Smith's ear saying, hey, Russ is taking too many risks here. Reel him back in. We can't be turning the ball over. Tomlin is a coach who's stuck in the 1970s philosophy of football where run the ball on offense, don't take any risks, win the game on defense. Tomlin would much rather win the game, 13-10 and have the offense look completely ugly than win a game, like the Cincinnati game last year, 44-38. So, I mean, looking at the Kansas City Chiefs, Andy Reid, what do you think of Andy Reid as? He's an offensive minded coach and he's pretty much the play caller on the offense. Meanwhile, you got Spagnuolo, their defensive coordinator, who has full control of the defense. If you're Tomlin, you need to either, looking at the two teams in the Super Bowl, you either need to be Nick Sirianni, where you're a CEO and you let both of your coordinators do their own thing, or you be like an Andy Reid, where if you're Tomlin, defensive coach, you run the defense and you let Arthur Smith do his thing. Sort of have like, you're still the head coach. You have last say on all the calls, but let Arthur Smith do his thing. Let each of you be your own individual coaches, sort of be co-head coaches, even though you're the one who has, more rank and authority. But yeah, I mean, I definitely think Tomlin needs to keep his hands off the offense and just let Arthur Smith do his thing. There's a reason you brought in Arthur Smith. You saw him when he was the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans have that offense as a top 5 offense in the NFL, and Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback, for crying out loud. So let Arthur Smith do his thing. Don't necessarily think of how he is today. Think of him when he was the Atlanta Falcons head coach. Think of him when he was the OC with the Titans. Let him do his thing. Let him run his offense. Don't cripple him, which in process cripples what your players can do on the field. Would the Steelers need to move up in the draft to get Dart? Right now, I mean, it depends on how the first couple of picks go in the draft. Right now, I think everybody, analysts, fans, and whatnot, they are fully convinced that Cam Ward is going to go number 1 to the Titans. It then depends on, in my opinion, how the next 2 picks go. Because you got the Browns, who they got Deshaun Watson in that ugly contract. They just traded for Kenny Pickett. They could be signing Russell Wilson for all we know. Are they then going to take Shedeur Sanders? I mean, you got to wait for them. I think if they sign Russell Wilson, then they don't take a quarterback at 2, because they could take any of the 3 of Shedeur Sanders, Abdul Carter, or Travis Hunter right now. And then behind them, who has the 3rd pick? Why am I blanking? The Giants. The Giants, yeah. Right now, I mean, would the Steelers need to trade up to draft Dart? I'm going to say no right now, but if Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders both go within the first 3 picks, then you got to think of that. I don't think it's a lot. Like, here, let me pull up the draft order, and then I could answer that question. See what teams the Steelers have in front of them. So, yeah, Titans have 1. Titans have the 1st overall pick. They're definitely taking a quarterback. Browns could take a quarterback if they don't sign Russell Wilson, or they think, Kenny Pickett can be a good enough starter until Deshaun Watson returns, which, LOL, what a quarterback room. Giants, they are probably a better shot at taking Shedeur Sanders there if they don't draft. Even if they do sign Aaron Rodgers, the Giants, I still think that they could draft Shedeur Sanders. Patriots, they're not taking a quarterback. Jags, no. Raiders, probably not, seeing how they just traded a 3rd-round pick for Geno Smith to reunite him with Pete Carroll. I'm going to go probably 60% they aren't going to draft a quarterback, 40% they are. Jets, no, they just signed Justin Fields. Panthers, no, they got Bryce Young unless they really think that, Young isn't the long-term option. Saints, probably not because they're keeping Derek Carr. Probably not, though I can't rule them out entirely. Bears, no. Niners, no. Cowboys, no. Dolphins, no. Colts, probably not. They just signed Daniel Jones and they still got Anthony Richardson. They'd have to trade Richardson for me to consider them taking a quarterback. Falcons, no. Cardinals, no. Bengals, no. Seahawks, no. They just signed Sam Darnold. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, no. Denver Broncos, no. And then the Steelers. So you're looking at least 3 teams in front of them who would definitely consider looking quarterback, and then beyond that, 2 or 3 more maybes. So I don't think you would need to trade up for Dart unless, a team like the Raiders or the Saints, who you think they could possibly look at quarterback if they take a player and then trade back up into the first round, then you would need to trade up, but I don't think so. Looking at teams that I think the Steelers could trade up with in that instance, could probably get a deal done with the Seahawks. You, I think, have good trade relations with them. Pretty much any of these other teams that, have most of their holes in their roster filled. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, you might be able to swing a trade to trade up for them. So, but yeah, I mean, right now, you just hope that it's like when the Steelers drafted Kenny Pickett, you see how far he falls down, you be patient. Omar Khan, that is one thing that is both a blessing and a curse for him. He is a very patient general manager when he believes that a player is going to fall. So I hope Steelers get Dart one way or another, but I wouldn't, sell the farm to move up into the top 10 for him. I say you stay there, you stick with where you're at, and you hope he falls to at least around your spot. More comments here. Mike C. Fire Tomlin is the first order of business. Mike, do I agree with you? Probably. But is it going to happen? Absolutely not. Steelers, unless the fans, like they did Matt Canada, start chanting Fire Tomlin and it becomes a national phenomenon like the Fire Canada chants became, because we all remember when right before Canada got fired, pretty much anywhere, I follow the Pat McAfee show, pretty much anywhere McAfee went for College Game Day, even like as far out as Utah, they were chanting Fire Canada. It would have to become, the Steelers would need to be one of the worst teams in the NFL, and the noise from the public and the media would have to be super, super loud for Tomlin to get fired. But let's not act here like Tomlin just signed a 3-year extension last offseason. Anyways, I think by then, when Tomlin's contract expires, Rooney will be 75. And I believe that's when Art, the Chief, retired. Or his dad retired. Anyway, I think when Tomlin leaves, you'll see Art the second leave as well. When Tomlin's contract expires, Art will probably retire. Tomlin will either retire, go to, TV, or go coach elsewhere, and then it'll be left to Art's son, Danny, to where he will, and Danny, from what I heard, is much more of a football guy than Art 2 is. Danny then will have, it'll be his baby. He can choose what coach he wants, what quarterback he wants, all that good stuff. So Tomlin's not getting fired, and the closest that Tomlin will no longer be the Steelers head coach will be when his contract expires and Rooney retires. Any idea on next year's compensatory picks number of and how high? I do have that here. Hang on, let me go back here. I believe I had it bookmarked. Now, since then, the Steelers lost Mike Williams. I don't think they should get any. They're going to get any compensatory pick for that. But here, I got to scroll down a little bit here. I had it somewhere. Here, as of right now, this is granted from 2 days ago now. Steelers compensatory value chart for 2026 so far. And this was via Over the Cap. Dan Moore Jr. signed a 4-year, $82 million deal with the Titans. That gets the Steelers a third-round compensatory pick. Fields going to the Jets for 2 years, $40 million. That's a fourth-round compensatory pick. Najee, his 1 year, $9.5 million deal with the Chargers. That's a fifth-round compensatory pick. And then James Daniels signing a 3-year deal with the Miami Dolphins, and Dante Jackson signing a 2-year deal, I believe it was, with the Chargers. Each of those guys got sixth-round draft picks. So looking here, Dan Moore Jr., his signing fetches the Steelers a third-round pick. Right now, that is number 69 in the draft. Justin Fields gets you a fourth. That is pick number 118. Najee Harris got you a fifth. That is pick 275. And then James Daniels and Dante Jackson, those are each sixth-rounders. Pick number 305. And I'm not sure about this one. Pick number 393. Not sure if that's a sixth-round pick. That might be a seventh. But yeah, Steelers, at least right now, slated to get, around 5 compensatory picks when it's all said and done for next year's draft. And this goes back to what I was saying about the quarterback situation earlier. If the Steelers ride it out with Mason Rudolph for this whole year, they don't take a quarterback in this year's draft, then, those compensatory picks help out a lot, because then that affords Omar Khan to use other draft picks, and even those compensatory picks, that gives him more ammo to use in trade talks to trade up in the draft and take a quarterback high in the 2026 draft, which is a stronger quarterback class, and the draft is in your city, so you'll, get great PR and praise from that from in the city. Jonathan Harvey, Pittsburgh bringing back Mason is a poor, lazy move. Steelers organization is bad now. Draft a quarterback. Agree with draft a quarterback, but I mean, lazy move, poor, lazy move. I like the move. I mean, if you say draft a quarterback, you're going to need a veteran for him to, learn behind for a couple of games and have a guy who's going to be a great teammate for that young quarterback and help him learn the ropes and be a solid option behind him in case the rookie either struggles or gets hurt. And I think Mason checks off all those boxes. Mason has sat behind one of the greatest quarterbacks ever in Ben Roethlisberger, learned a lot from him, performed well, knows how to win, a couple of games in the NFL, and I think he could really help out. I think he can really help out a young quarterback should they draft him. Jonathan, again, a billboard was mounted saying for Rooney to sell and fire Tomlin, right? Yes, that was at the center of the Boulevard of the Allies. Funny story, though, is that my uncle actually knows the guy, I believe it's Kevin Adams. My uncle actually knows the dude who put up that billboard. So, yeah, I mean, that, and you know what, Steelers fans, they really stole that idea from Pirates fans, putting up the sell the team Bob billboards all around Pittsburgh. So it would have to get I don't think a billboard's gonna, do all that much. Rooney is a pretty, deaf ear to the public owner. So it would have to, be a much stronger movement than just a billboard to get them to fire Tomlin. Top Gun here again. Mike Tomlin is mediocre. His name to fame is never having a losing record. He has not won a playoff game for over 7 years and is 3 games under 500 in the playoffs. Game over. Yeah, I mean, again, no lies detected there. And, the only thing that you pretty much left out there is when people like to say, oh, Tomlin only won that Super Bowl because he had Cowher's players. And look what happened then when he went to another Super Bowl with more of his players and they lost. So, and another thing here, related to Tomlin is that because Tomlin is here, I don't think we can close the book on Rodgers until he puts pen to paper elsewhere, because we know Tomlin loves his veteran quarterbacks who won Super Bowl, and more importantly, players who have had success against him. And we've all seen the videos of Rodgers looking to the Steelers sideline, Tomlin hitting him with the whole, wink and all that BS. So can't close the book on Rodgers until it's official that he signs elsewhere. Jonathan Harvey again. Mason drafted with a first-round grade and now has to settle as a backup. At least the billboard is in Rooney's mind. The pressure is on him. I mean, like I just said, Rooney is one of the most deaf ear to the public owners ever. And, I think Rooney's got more to worry about. I think worrying about firing Tom is on the bottom of Rooney's list. We'd be more likely for the Steelers to get their own practice facility and have their, locker room look like an actual NFL locker room. Like, have you seen the pictures before of the Steelers locker room compared to the Pitt Panthers locker room, both in Acrisure Stadium? They are not even in the same dimension of professional, looking operations there. Mason drafted with a first round grade and now has to settle to be a backup. That is what the Steelers said, and then they didn't really give him the chance to show his first round potential, because they brought back Ben and they had Mason sit behind Ben all that time. I mean, really, Mason flashed a little bit of that first round potential 2 years ago in the run up to the playoffs. So I think it's going to be, if the Steelers don't sign Rodgers or Wilson, it's going to be Mason. The ball's in Mason's court to where he will then finally, after 6 years in the league, 7 years in the league, get that opportunity to be, a starting quarterback and have some leash to go on. So it's going to be Mason's time. They really thought he was a first round grade. He's going to get that opportunity. It's not, it's up to him whether, he's a backup or not at this moment in time. He can go out there and he can prove it and show the Steelers something, or he can, go 500 and then have and then sit behind a rookie or whatever. Rodgers is holding the team hostage, as said by a former GM. I did see that quote, and yeah, I mean, really, the entire, except for this move, Steelers needed to make this move, regardless of whether you like it or not, Jonathan. The Steelers needed to make this move because of Rodgers holding up. The Steelers can't wait for Rodgers to make his decision here in, a month, and then have only Skylar Thompson under contract at quarterback heading into the draft. They needed to make this move, and it gives them at least a guy who has started, more than a handful of games in the NFL, in case Rodgers or Wilson sign elsewhere. Top Gun, Ben hated Mason and didn't do anything to help him at all. Agreed. Ben really took the kind of like what Rodgers did to Jordan Love up in Green Bay. It's like hey, I'm not here to babysit or, teach this guy everything I know. He can watch me see how I do it and, you know, come along if he should he, be able to pick it up fast enough. And I believe wasn't it a thing when the Steelers drafted Mason, I mean, they made a run to the AFC Championship game, I believe, or they were, in the playoffs then. And, you know, I think Ben was more angry that they didn't add another weapon for him to throw to on offense than uh them drafting Mason, because I mean they did add him a weapon, but it was pretty much more for Mason. They drafted James Washington, who went to college with Mason. So I think Ben was more upset at that than with Mason. So Stephen Parks, I am happy he is back in Pittsburgh. Absolutely. Love Mason being back here. Let's do a quick scroll through Twitter, see what else we got cooking here. 2 years, $8 million deal again for Mason. There it is. I talked about it earlier. Christopher Carter posted it. You couldn't live with your failure, and where did it bring you? Right back to me, the Thanos quote. I knew that was coming. In the meantime, the Steelers are finally making official the signing of linebacker Malik Harris. That now makes one of their free agent signings official. They also made official the signing of Brandon Eccles as well, who was signed yesterday, corner. Or no, that's Malik. Yeah. Okay, so the Malik Harrison signing made official by the Steelers. The Kenneth Gainwell signing made official by the Steelers. The Brandon Eccles signing made official by the Steelers. And so it's great to know. Just please make official the signing already. The Darius Slay, signing and the DK Metcalf trade. I mean, that would make me feel a lot better when it's the Steelers officially announcing that. Oh, get a load of this. Alan Saunders, 5 minutes ago, the Steelers are meeting with former San Francisco 49ers and Ravens All-Pro fullback Kyle Juszczyk, per Adam Schefter of ESPN. The best fullback in the league for a decade. Juice will be 34 next season. Do it. Do it. Omar Khan, look at me right now. If you are serious, do it. Please. I cannot deal with watching Connor Hayward line up as a fullback anymore. Please. I don't care if he's 34. I don't care if, he had a somewhat, down season. He's been there, done that guy. He's been to a Super Bowl. He can be a calming influence for a young running back room for you. Please bring in Kyle Juszczyk. I don't care. That's where I stand on that. Bring in Kyle Juszczyk. All right, back to the comments here. Stephen Parks, Pittsburgh, so bringing back Kenny. I said it earlier as, funny, and I mean, Kenny would be enemy number one upon returning to Pittsburgh. You might have a couple of Pittsburgh guys, which, I mean, not going to lie, I'm a Pittsburgh guy. That's probably part of why I liked Kenny when he was here, and I put on the, Kenny can do no wrong glasses from time to time, but I'm past that now. I'm never getting overhyped by a player who went to my school again. I'm going to be, a harsh judger like everybody else. But, yeah, Pittsburgh, so bringing back Kenny. Unfortunately, they can't. It is a rule in the NFL that you cannot reacquire a player within 2 years of trading that player away. I think, and I'm not entirely 100% sure about this, I believe the only way Kenny could come back is if he were to get released by the Browns, which, hey, if the Browns sign Russell Wilson, he could demand a release, and that'd be funny as hell. So, yeah, Kenny cannot come back right now. Top Gun. When the Steelers drafted Mason, it was at the time in Ben's career when he should have retired, but instead we signed him to a 3-year extension, and the offense has been downhill since we extended Ben. I do remember that, and I remember that it was solely the Steelers offered Ben a contract that was, such a low ball offer. They thought he was going to retire or go somewhere else, but Ben ended up accepting it. So the Steelers offering Ben, a really crappy offer, and he ended up taking it. That's what screwed it up. That's what screwed it up there, Top Gun. Flacco. I don't know how to pronounce that. If it's Flacco, I mean, we do not really speak that name in the Steeler circle. Ugly ass offense. Kyle useless. I don't think Kyle is useless. I mean, the Steelers need a fullback. He's the best one available. You see what a half decent fullback can do for your offense in what the Ravens have in Patrick Ricard in your division. He gives you, tell you what, Kyle Juszczyk at 34 years old, he would be a much better fullback and receiving threat than Connor Hayward right now. I can deal with that. Oh, Flacco means skinny. Okay. Well, I'm just talking about the Ravens quarterback. Sorry there. Our problem is we suck in cold weather. Look at the past. And I mean, yeah, that stinks how bad we are in cold weather right now. For a team that used to pride itself on going into the elements and hitting hard, you don't really see the Steelers do that anymore. I hate the Ravens, period. Okay, glad to see we're on your side, that you're on our side. And our problem is that we suck in cold weather. I think that's another reason why Rudolph was brought back, is that he's a quarterback who has that experience up here in Pittsburgh in the elements. And I think that's probably what gave him the edge over, my second best fringe starter backup option behind Rudolph was Gardner Minshew, because Minshew, he played in Jacksonville, so he played in sunny conditions there. Then he played for the Colts and the Raiders, two dome stadiums. So Minshew isn't the guy who has the most experience in, cold weather conditions. Steven Parks, is it going to be a backup quarterback? Where is Russell Wilson at? Wilson, actually, he's probably in Cleveland right now. Schefter reported yesterday that he was scheduled to meet with the Browns on Thursday, presumably during this morning or this afternoon. And then also Russ is going to fly from Cleveland to New York, or New Jersey more accurately, tonight to meet with the Giants as well. So apparently Rodgers making, his decision, taking his time to make his decision. That's, holding up Russell Wilson's decision of where he's going, but he may be getting impatient. Teams may be getting impatient, and Russ could be signing a deal with either of those teams before, the day is over. Who knows? Top Gun, we don't want Kenny back. He was as bad gets. I agree. You can't bring Kenny back. I think he burned all or most of the bridges here in Pittsburgh, and the fan base is gonna, give him the... Remember when Trubisky was here and people were calling for Kenny? I believe Kenny would be getting that treatment of people booing him and chanting for the other quarterback, whoever that would be. Where is Justin Fields at, Steven? He was gone on Monday, went to the Jets, 2 years, $20 million per year. So he signed a 2-year, $40 million deal with $30 million guaranteed from the Jets. I believe the Steelers offered him 2 years with only $30 million and 20 of that guaranteed. So Fields went for the money, and also he went to a place that, he felt he wasn't going to be betrayed, like what Tomlin did here, benching him for Wilson. So yeah, Kyle Juszczyk meeting with the Steelers. Would love that signing. I believe 44 is available. I believe it was last worn by Tyler Metakevich. That's hilarious. Minkaberg Steelers. Mason Rudolph under a Trump presidency, it's freaking LeBron James highlights. If Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign in Pittsburgh, go with Mason Rudolph for a year, draft a quarterback in 2026. That's what from Austin Beck told of 93.7 The Fan. And I think he's saying that because he's a Penn State guy and he wants Drew Aller to be the Steelers quarterback. 28 minutes ago, Steelers making another re-signing. They are bringing back wide receiver Scotty Miller. I'm okay with that pickup. A guy that might get a catch here or there, and a guy who can block, who can play special teams, has a bit of return ability in him. So as a guy who will probably be on the 53-man roster, but will, probably not get a helmet most game days, I'm cool with that, with Scotty Miller coming back. There it is. Another Thanos picture, but it's got Mason Rudolph's head on it. Love it. Yeah, again, just another reason why Mason coming back. Hey, I got GP, right here, going back. Mason Rudolph has a big arm, and when he was with the Steelers, Rudolph said, quote, "Hey, I got GP. If I bomb it deep, good things happen." Well, now you got GP, and you got as good, if not a better deep threat in DK Metcalf. So give Rudolph, whether you draft a quarterback or, whatever, if Rudolph's your starter, let him go bombs away. You got 6'3" and 6'4", 200-plus pound targets running down the field against corners who are, anywhere from 5'10" to 6 foot even, covering those guys. Let your wide receivers make a play. Breaking news. Mason Rudolph returning to the Steelers. That from DK Pittsburgh Sports, and he called it. And honestly, he's probably the guy who was most tied into what Rudolph was thinking and hearing. And somebody here on Twitter said, so we overpaid for a backup quarterback and people are happy about it. The NFL cap is going up. The NFL cap is going up, and quarterbacks are getting paid more than ever right now. That right now is market value, if not below market value, price for a backup quarterback. Like, Mitch Trubisky got paid, $10 million per year to be the Steelers' backup? Like, I don't make any sense why people would bash the contract of all things. Again, scrolling past more news. Brandon Echols signing official. Okay. Oh, another. I will say this here now. I posted it on Twitter. If you want to go check out my Twitter, feel free to do that. It's the same username, Steel City SR. I did do a mock draft this morning. And honestly, it goes to what I was saying here earlier. I did this off of Pro Football Network. My mock draft, no trades. Pick 21, I did take Jackson Dart, quarterback who's going to sit behind Mason Rudolph now. And I think could, with the weapons the Steelers now have on offense, make the most of it. I would also love an Ole Miss quarterback throwing to a former Ole Miss guy in DK Metcalf. Pick 83, took Deion Walker, defensive tackle from Kentucky. Dude is 6'7". They say 330 pounds, but that was probably combine measurements. He plays much heavier than that. And dude can move, and he's agile from what I've watched. So, 6'7", 330 pounds, middle of the defensive line. Need I say less? Would love to have him. Pick 123, had a couple of running back options there. I took Ollie Gordon just to have, a taller back in the backfield at running back. I think Jaylen Warren's going to get most of the carries anyways, but I would love Ollie Gordon to be, a guy who's a change of pace running back. There was also Bayshall Tootin there. Would love to have Tootin. Dude is a burner, ran the fastest 40 at the combine. Pick 156 took Noel Williams from California. A guy who I think is going to be a damn good backup corner in the NFL, had tons of production at California and in the East-West Shrine Bowl and the Senior Bowl. And I think he can contribute on special teams as well. Pick 223 in the 7th round, I took Antoine Wells Jr., wide receiver, Ole Miss. Just a guy who, Dart has a relationship, so he isn't going into the locker room completely without knowing anybody in there. So Wells will be a teammate for Dart to lean on, and also has a chemistry with him if Wells gets on the field from time to time. And then pick 229. I doubt this guy falls this far, but I took Nazir Stackhouse, defensive tackle from Georgia, another defensive lineman. Steelers need to get younger on that D line, and Stackhouse, he can be used on special teams, kick blocking, and whatnot. So happy with that mock draft I did this morning. Yeah, more Jerry Dulac, Steelers reporter for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. He officially announces that the Steelers are meeting with Juszczyk this morning. So, somebody just put, for those of you who don't know Kyle Juszczyk, his wife Kristen, she is a clothes designer, and also a clothes designer is Mike Tomlin's wife, I believe. So, yeah, they are going to be collabing, making some good articles of clothing there. And yeah, that's about it. So I think I'm going to wrap it up for the time being. Thank you, all of you who joined me here today. Let me hit on a couple more comments here for those of you I missed while I was reading through all that. I'd really want to try out AR5 since the Colts want him gone. I don't think the Colts want him gone. They're trying to motivate him, which motivation is apparently a big issue with him. They're trying to motivate him, saying, hey, we brought in this dude who's been a starter, has, not as gifted abilities as you have, but, is very similar build of quarterback as you. I think they brought in Jones to push him, and I think AR5, he's going to be one of those dudes who has all of the God-given abilities and talents that that you could possibly have in a quarterback, but I don't think he's going to develop the mental side of it to be a long-term starter in the NFL. Scotty Miller was good here on the Bucks. Not mad about that re-signing. Not mad at it at all. Like I said, guy who's going to, know the system, contribute on special teams. May not be a guy who's, always getting a helmet on game day, but a guy that pretty well. And yeah, I have no issues with that signing whatsoever. The only minor issue I have with Miller re-signing, and there's still a possibility of this happening. If the Steelers were picking between Scotty Miller and Ben Skoranek, I would have taken Skoranek 9 times out of 10. Skoranek was like Miller, a good fringe receiver, and he was much better on special teams, had a couple of fumble recoveries and whatnot. But I hope Skoranek still comes back. But right now, with Miller back, Steelers in their wide receiver room, they have GP, DK Metcalf, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, who's going to hopefully, get a full training camp under him and ability and chance to learn the playbook and get implemented into this offense. So that's 4 there. And now you bring back Scotty Miller. Steelers could either bring back Ben Skoranek or, I think it's more likely that, like I did in my mock draft, they use a draft pick on a wide receiver in the mid to late rounds. Or, they could lose their minds and spend their first round pick on Emeka Egbuka and, have an elite, number 2 profile wide receiver in the slot, but I don't see that happening now. Ben Skoranek is more money than Scotty Miller. I'm sure. Yeah, you're probably right there. I'm sure Skoranek, some team out there, is going to see what he did last year and pay him more than the Steelers. Top Gun, we dodged a bullet not signing Justin Fields. He is a career under 500 quarterback starter with more turnovers than TDs. We brought him in for 6 plays after Wilson started, and he failed on 4 of them. I mean, I don't necessarily blame him failing on 4 of those plays on, his ability. I think he's very, very cold. You're bringing a dude in off the bench. And also, that was if you want to talk about one of those plays that he failed on, I bet you're thinking of one of them was the one pass he made in the snow game against Cleveland. And I put that on Arthur Smith. How much of a dumbass decision what it was. And Wilson was playing good in that game. So how much of a dumbass decision was it by, either Arthur Smith or Mike Tomlin to bring in a quarterback off the bench in the snow, a quarterback who's much less of a passer, who's, somewhat of a less passer than Russell Wilson, and have him take a deep shot? That was an asinine decision. I don't put that on Fields. I mean, under 500 quarterback in his career. Do you remember where he was playing? The Chicago Bears are probably the biggest quarterback hell besides the Cleveland Browns in the NFL. No wonder why he didn't, perform well here. It's the Bears of all teams. I mean, dodged a bullet, wouldn't say that. I would have loved to seen Fields get a full year here. He was above 500 as the starter, 4-2. So, I mean, not necessarily agreeing with your statement, but not disagreeing with it either. We'll have to wait and see how he pans out in New York and see if it's true that, he's just a high-end backup quarterback. Rudolph moves back to Pitt. Of course, he was going to get his job back. Did he even sell his house here? I'm assuming he had a house here. I love that room, by the way. I assume you're talking about the Jackson Dart Rudolph room. I appreciate it then. I would pay in blood today to have Jackson Dart and Mason Rudolph be the 1 and 2 quarterbacks in that room. Najee needed Juszczyk, would have helped a lot. I mean, not entirely sure how well of a run blocker Juszczyk is anymore. I assume he's half decent, but I think Najee would have needed more of a Patrick Ricard 300 or 200, high 200, low 300-pound fullback, blasting a gaping hole for him to run through than Juszczyk. I think Juszczyk would have been used more than Najee out there as like a single back and when it's a clear running option. Oh, your physical room, you're streaming it. Oh, yeah, appreciate it very much. Yeah, got a lot of good things in here. Of course, as you can tell, WWE guy got the Pirates, Penguins, and Steelers WWE belts here. Got that helmet there down in Myrtle Beach. I got also a entertainment center here. Let me pick this up real quick. Got an entertainment center right here with some merchandise as well. Got these pictures here that you see, that those pictures there on the floor. Got those for Christmas this year. And like my room back there, right? That picture, if you can see, there's a Pittsburgh Penguins street light sign right there. Right there, that's me meeting Mario Lemieux as a kid, right there where the tip of my finger is. And then beyond that, on the other side of it, it's kind of hard to see. That is a signed Bork from the Penguins. Signed photo for me. Then I also got 2 signed pictures up there. of Sergeant Slaughter and George the Animal Steele. So, yeah, I mean, like my room a lot. Also got a signed Jack Ham Hall of Fame photo right there. Got a couple of other signed things in here as well. But yeah, like my room a lot. Thank you very much for saying that. Scroll back up here. Tallman isn't a good game manager. He's a people's coach. The best, in my opinion. I love him, but let the coordinators do your job. Agreed, let the coordinators do your job. And here's the thing. You mentioned Tallman isn't a good game manager. Why don't we have a coach that does that for him? The Steelers in the NFL, they have one of the smallest coaching staffs in the entire league. I believe the number was they only have no more than 27 coaches on staff. That is one of the smallest numbers in the NFL. And yeah, I mean, there should be a guy. If Tomlin's so focused on the on-field product and what players are doing and having his hands a little bit in the defense and a little bit in the offense, well, he's mainly running the defense. I don't think Terrell Austin does a whole bunch there. But Tomlin's running the defense. He's now sprinkling over into the offense. He's talking his players, motivating them on the sideline. And yeah, his clock management has been a hampering to him all his career. And yeah, there should definitely be a guy on there saying, "Hey Mike, we got like 3 timeouts here in the clock, and we're running the clock down off the 2-minute warning to like a minute 32, and we're about to like run hurry up offense. Maybe we should like spend a little time out here." Or like going back, like here's an example, like I believe it was when Justin Fields was the quarterback, the Steelers, before running a play on 4th down when there was clearly not enough time to, run another play after that, just take your time out. Make sure you give your guys a breather, or make sure everybody knows the play. Just, yeah, poor time management. And yeah, he's a people's coach, the best in my opinion. He's one hell of a motivator, not denying that, because I mean, you go watch any part of him talking in the Hard Knocks series that came out a couple of months ago, he'd have you ready to run through a brick wall. But yeah, he's talking about your room, I'm sure pretty cool. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks that you like my room. This is what gets me with the Steelers brass, and specifically Tomlin. Russ played well, and Steelers won games, reached 10-3, with Tomlin saying, "This is why I'm well compensated." Russ now making visits. I mean, I think it went downhill when George Pickens got injured, and you had no options behind him. Your top receiver was what? Calvin Austin, with Van Jefferson and then Mike Williams, who for some reason they didn't put on the field. At Top Gun, I wanted Warren as the up the gut guy and Najee as the passing back. 2 reasons: Warren can blow through that D line. Najee catching can plow through people. I think that's one thing people really underestimated Najee in, is that really over the past 2 years, Warren became that receiving back. Najee, a very, very underutilized, underrated pass catcher. And yeah, I probably would have used him in a similar thing like that. Najee just didn't have the burst to run through the tackles before the defensive linemen either shed off their blocks or the linebacker filled the hole. And I'm not, saying that it's all Najee's fault either. He got a rough go of things here. Matt Canada and his kindergarten playbook as his coordinator. The offensive line, it's still not a finished product today. And, Najee to begin his career was running behind, Kenyon Green and, Trey Turner, whoever the hell that Turner guard was, whatever his name was at one point. So yeah, not entirely blaming it on Najee, and not entirely blaming it on Najee or the Steelers. I would have liked to have Najee back for one more year, but this is just how it goes. A two teams that have split apart. Flacco, Sargent, Slaughter's my guy, absolutely. Also, Flacco, what'd you think of John Cena turning heel? Scotty Miller is a camp body. Draft has good wide receivers. I mean, draft is like pretty, in my opinion, draft is like top heavy. Like you got your Tetaroa McMillans. You got McMillan, small drop down, Emeka Egbuka, Matthew Golden, Luther Burden, and then drop down from there. It's pretty scuzzy. Like I think you can still get like a decent value pick at wide receiver in the 5th or 6th round. Wouldn't be surprised at that at all. Don't mind Cena a hill, but it's not realistic. I mean, I'm glad he's turning heel because it would have been a less entertaining main event of WrestleMania had it been two faces in Cena and Cody. But yeah, I'm more pissed off at the fact that CM Punk isn't getting his WrestleMania main event. That's my guy. Excuse me. Russ is too small, can't see over the O-line. Agreed. Rudolph's what? 6'3"? Oh, excuse me here. I gotta get a drink here soon. Let me see here. Rudolph is 6'5". Yeah, Rudolph's gonna have no issue seeing over that line. Mason Rudolph 6'5". Yeah, I don't think. And like, here's the thing. I think I saw a couple of people say, "Oh, instead of bringing back Russell Wilson, the Cardinals, they're up there with a somewhat high draft pick. I believe they're 15th. Let's trade for Kyler Murray." What does Kyler Murray fix? Like, Kyler Murray can't see over the offensive line either. I mean, I'm sure he can scramble out and create plays, but I'd much rather, instead of trading for Kyler Murray, I'd much rather have brought back Justin Fields, scramble first quarterbacks. I'd much rather have the tall scramble quarterback than the small one. I'm done with small quarterbacks. Just get Mason Rudolph, 6'5" quarterback. How tall is Jackson Dart? I never looked into that. Hang on, wait, no, I don't have that there. Jackson Dart is come on, load up here. Jackson Dart, 6'2". All right, so it's not same height as Justin Fields. It's not the worst thing in the world. So I'm cool with, taking Dart and having Rudolph. Absolutely. Russell Wilson is a 10-time Pro Bowler. You can't say he has flaws. I mean, 10-time Pro Bowler when? Certainly not recently. Certainly not within the past, 3 years. So, Slamming Sam here. Glad to see you. First time I'm seeing you comment. Please subscribe to the channel. Thought they'd go Jameis. Mason is solid, though. Absolutely, they were not even thinking of Jameis, I bet. As much as I would love Jameis Winston just for the simple off-the-field entertainment, walking around the city of Pittsburgh, he has too much. As much as I love a gunslinger mentality, he is too much of a gunslinger for Mike Tomlin's liking. Mike Tomlin, his biggest pet peeve is turnovers, and Jameis would have plenty of them. That's just in his DNA. Dart would be perfect, absolutely. I want Jackson Dart. I mean, I've come around to the idea of spending a first-round pick on him, and I'd say that purely out of, he'd be a much better option currently and long-term, I believe, than Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. I'm a fan of Russ. I lived in Seattle for 3 years. I mean, yeah, fan of Russ. Let me get this straight. Russ, the person, absolutely love. Grade A dude. I've covered on this channel, if you go back and you watch my other content, my videos that I, used to make, Russ, big guy at the Children's Hospital, UPMC Children's Hospital, just a phenomenal dude. Even I covered one time, he went there every Tuesday, I think. And, even when the Pittsburgh Penguins, the hockey team, went there, Russ, joined them, and he went and he visited all the kids, didn't leave until he met each and every one of the kids there, knew them all by name, and yeah, just a grade A human being. And is he a little too positive at times when it comes to football? Yeah, but I'm never going to slander that guy's character whatsoever. Now, Russ, the player, I could maybe be talked into him coming back a little bit, but right now I'm just assuming that he's gone, seeing how there's been no talk about the Steelers and him. It's only been mentioned the Browns and Giants right now. Top Gun again. Steelers offensive problems is Tomlin. Ever since we got rid of Todd Haley, the offense has never changed, and the only constant is Tomlin. It's been bad for the last 6 years anyways. Yeah, one way or another, Tomlin has been at least somewhat to blame for this state of the current offense. It goes to firing Todd Haley, like you mentioned. It goes for keeping Matt Canada on too long, and it goes to today, him having last say in the offense and not letting Arthur Smith run his not letting him run his system. Speaking of systems, Slam Russ fits the Steelers system better than Rodgers. That's debatable. I think, it did work there when Russ first came in over Justin Fields. It did work there, but there's if he was really a perfect fit for the Steelers system, then I don't think there was any excuse that the Steelers collapsed the way they did the last 5 games. And most of that was on the defense, but still the offense could have performed way better. I think it got a little bit predictable there. And also the Arthur Smith system calls for more of a quarterback that can scramble, a little bit. And I think it's evident that Arthur Smith wanted Justin Fields over Wilson then. Flacco again, but he is small. He doesn't throw to the middle of the field enough for me. It's a waste of Muth and Calvin Austin. That is probably the biggest indictment there. You have an absolute speed demon in Calvin Austin, and the only way Russ hit him over the middle was when that Cincinnati game in Cincy, when Russ hit him down the middle of the field, and it was a deep ball. Like, of course, you're going to throw deep down the middle of the field, but it's the little stuff anywhere within 20 yards of the line of scrimmage in the middle of the field, Russ barely threw to. And that especially disappointed me the season Muth had, because Russ didn't throw there. Like, you just paid Muth a bunch of dollars. You need him to get the ball way more than he did. DK and Rodgers wouldn't work. I think Rodgers would, spread the ball, pretty even to DK and George. Those two metaphorically, not literally, fight for targets. But Rodgers would be here solely because Mike Tomlin wants him, and I don't see any other reason why. Rodgers would use the middle of the field a lot more, though, than Wilson. That's another positive for him. Aaron Jade, here we go. Steelers, absolutely. Excuse me. Okay, Brandon Eccles and Malik Harrison, those guys are having their introductory press conferences for the Steelers right now. All right, and well, Mason Rudolph is back. All right. Yep, I'm excited for Dart. I hope he's there, and I hope the Steelers are smart enough to take him. I'll put it this way. I have more faith that Dart will be there at 21 than I do the Steelers actually thinking of taking him. I hope the Steelers, see that they just need a, young guy in this room, and they can't, unless they want to fully tank out. I think their plan deep down is to tank out for the first overall pick when the draft is in Pittsburgh next year. But you have Mike Tomlin, a coach who's, immune to losing seasons for good and bad reasons. So, Aaron Jade here, we need a defensive tackle in the first round. It's looking that way. Well, I'd take Jackson Dart right now, but I'd rather take Jackson Dart. It feels like it's going to be a defensive tackle. I take Jackson Dart, but because the draft is so deep at defensive tackle. But if the Steelers do go defensive tackle in the first round, you're looking at guys. Mason Graham's going to be gone. You're looking at guys maybe like Kenneth Grant, Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan. Those are three names that come to mind for me. I'm sure, at least one or two of them will be gone by then. But it's feeling like it's a defensive tackle right now, though. I'd be perfectly behind and endorse for Jackson Dart to be picked now, just because you need a guy to throw to DK and GP. Really feel like it's defensive tackle. Absolutely. Dart fits the system better than Ward or Shadur. Ward's going to be gone first overall pick. Shadur, he's gonna leave the top 10, I believe. I'd be shocked if he gets outside the top 10. Think quarterbacks are going quick. I mean, even for a weak quarterback draft class, quarterbacks usually go quick. And get the quarterback next year and pick up Cup and forget Rodgers. I mean, here's the thing. This is why I want Dart. I want to bring in a rookie quarterback and have him develop with all those weapons. If you bring in Cup and you just have Mason Rudolph, what's the point of bringing in Cup? He's probably going to sign a 1-year deal at most. He's probably going to sign a 1-year deal. What's the point of bringing in Cup and wasting that money if you're not going to have a guy who's probably going to at least either, win you a bunch of games or be your long-term answer throwing to him? That doesn't make sense, bringing in Cup and not bringing in a guy who you either think is going to be a difference maker and take you to the playoffs, or a guy who's going to be a long-term hopeful idea. That would make any quarterback better with those three. I mean, yeah, but I'd much rather go all in or not at all. Don't be stuck in the middle having Mason Rudolph and throw into those three. Go get Jackson Dart and have a guy that you can hopefully develop into something long term. I'm saying the Steelers had the number 1 pick. I'd take Dart over them. I mean, production doesn't lie. Cam Ward produced in college. I put it this way. I have much more faith in Jackson Dart working out in the NFL than I do Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders. I mean, Cam Ward played in a weak ACC on the Miami Hurricanes, and Shadur Sanders, I'm not entirely convinced of how good he's going to be when he's away from his dad. 3 oops, just thinking of cap space. Yeah, I mean, Steelers, I'm shocked that they haven't added a defensive line yet. You're talking about taking a defensive line in the first round. Steelers could do that, but they need to add 1 or 2 now in free agency to where then you can afford to, if Dart's there at 21, take Dart and then pick up a defensive tackle in the third round. Like, my ideal circumstance right now, Steelers don't have a second round pick anymore. Jackson Dart falls to 21, you take him, and then Deion Walker from Kentucky falls to number 83. And then you take him then. Deion Walker, again, just a monster. Would love to have him. Got a quarterback next year. You can talk me into that all day long. Drew Aller, Arch Manning in the first round. Absolutely. All right, I've been on here for about almost 2 hours now, 1 hour and 45 minutes. I want to thank you all for joining me here today. If you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. We were at 303 when I started this stream here today. Now we are up to 310, so I appreciate it very much to those of you who subscribed today. Might be back on later tonight for, a general, news session. I've been doing these live streams around 6 p.m. at night. And, with this breaking news, I hopped on now too. So might be back on around 6 later tonight. Hope you all join me then as well. We'll talk, more Steelers. I bet there will probably be some more news, maybe Aaron Rodgers news, Russell Wilson news, who knows. But we'll be back on then to talk more Steelers and also talk some Penguins and Pirates as well, touch on them a little bit. But thank you for joining me, Aaron. Appreciate that very much. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Same to all of you fine, beautiful people as well. And I will see you guys back here at around 6 tonight. Like, share, and comment on this stream and subscribe to the channel. Thank you guys. See you later.